How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And today, oh my goodness, we have a lot to talk about today. The news has been a blessing to me today, because as anybody knows that watches this show, you know that I don't look for the headline that's all flashy. Okay, North Korea shot another missile off. Okay, I get it. All right. There's a problem there. But the problem is not just that North Korea keeps sending missiles over Japan or towards Japan. The problem is that nothing has been done about North Korea in 50 years. So we're going to discuss this. I mean, I've discussed this a lot. But some other things have come to light just today, some stories that have been written that just add credence to what I've been almost preaching for the past 2 years. So let's get started, shall we? How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. So, you know, I've been doing this for, gosh, almost 2 years now. We've been doing this show. And every night, I have a warning order. And quite often, the warning order actually turns out to be opening remarks. Or sometimes I never even get to the A block. I get on a roll, or maybe we have a guest or something. And so I want to explain what a warning order is so that people will know why I have this here, because it kind of goes right along with tonight. Let me just fix this first. Remember, I'm the producer of this show. I'm the booker on this show. I'm the tech guy. I'm the host. The only thing, I'm not my own guest. I guess I could Skype myself in. Let me fix this. It's driving me crazy. When I get through with this, a lot of the times I will there it is. Boom. Look at that. There we go. You see that, folks? Other networks have whole rooms of people that do this stuff. Of course, it's cleaner than this, but nonetheless, here we go. So, okay, so what a warning order is. A warning order is something that we get when we initially get tasked with a mission. In the SEAL teams or in the military in general, they do warning orders. So what will happen is we'll come down and they'll give an overview. I'm not going to go into technical terms that we use in the military because that's not really, you know, the people that are typically watching this show. So basically, this is what it boils down to. Intelligence or a mission that went on before or something that happened has determined that this target or that this particular mission needs to be carried out, that target needs to be hit, so on and so forth. So what we do is we have an initial briefing called a warning order where it lays out all the different aspects of what is needed, about what is known, about how you're going to communicate, about just all the different variables that are a concern for this mission. Now, after you get the warning order, you have a very good picture of what is actually going on and what is going to be needed, what type of a mission it's probably going to be, whether it's a direct action mission or it's going to involve combat swimmers, for instance, or parachuting. You know, those things start to come to light throughout this. You often get briefed on the reality of who the mission is against and the intelligence. That stuff will, as you continue to develop the mission and you send everybody off to come up with concepts of operation, more intelligence will often come to light, whether it be human intelligence, intelligence gathered by satellites or sources, you know, whatever it might be. You then go off. Often what we do is we create 3 concepts of operation. We come back. So, you know, in the military, we do start with an overall briefing. That's what this warning order is. We then go out and we develop different concepts of how we would carry out this mission. We bring those back, we submit those, they will get approved. Usually it's 1, maybe it's 2, and then we'll do the further on planning of those missions where everybody that has a specific specialty will do further planning of that mission. We come back, we do a final brief, and then we go out the door. There may be other parts, other briefs that go on in there, but overall, that's what this is. That's what it's like. Okay, that's a brief overview of the way things happen. Now, if you see during the day, when you watch the news, you're not getting, first and foremost, you're not getting a full intel brief on anything. You're not seeing the full reality of most of exactly what's going on behind the scenes. You're seeing whatever is salacious. And quite often, it's remarkable to me how some of these stories that should be shocking people, they come and then they go and then they disappear, not to be seen again, because in this news cycle, it's not what it's not, okay, this is important. Let's go through and dissect it so that we can see exactly what the American people need to know. And quite frankly, the American people aren't doing this either, where they dissect it and say, this is of a real concern for me. How many people are like this? You know, the whole Pizzagate thing that came out. People were very fast to just brush that off, regardless of the fact that it had accusations of pedophilia, of, you know, child sex trafficking, whatever. People were more concerned with the fact that it was that they felt like people were attacking liberals than anything else, and they just dismissed it and went on. I'm not getting into Pizzagate, and I'll tell you why. I'll be quite honest with you. First and foremost, my voice on Pizzagate is not going to make a difference. I'll be honest with you. The people that would ever do such a thing, they don't care what I have to say. And the majority of people that that could do anything about it, they're not listening to what I have to say. So I'm not going to get involved with it. The other thing is, I've seen it ruin several people's careers. You know, we'll attack that problem from another angle and let people worry about that. And whether or not I feel it's true or not, I feel like everything in Hollywood, there's substance to it. But because the news cycle is so fast, people forget about it, you know, or people say, I don't want to touch that because it'll ruin my advertising. I'll get kicked off social media and so on and so forth. So they just move on. But let me just, this is very interesting because this warning order tonight, I'm actually going to stick with a warning order. You should start looking at the reality of what these stories are before they pass on. One of the things that I do is I keep my notes open on my phone or on my computer because it's all linked, you know, nowadays where everything kind of communicates. So if I put a note on my phone or on the computer, it's going to be shared with my other devices. So what I do is I'll copy the link to the story and put it in my notes so that I have that later on. So if the news cycle does start to spin up, I can still go back to that. One of the things that I'm going to bring up today, that's what I did. I put the link on there and I went back to it. And I'm amazed at how quickly this story just disappeared. Whether it's some kind of sex trafficking or pedophilia going on in Washington, D.C., or the occult, or communism that's running rampant, or some signs and symptoms of like people that are psychopaths or extreme narcissists, and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot in the news that shows signs, clinical signs of narcissism and psychopathology. I mean, it's unbelievable what we're seeing these days. And what's funny is they always say, y'all, you can look at Trump and you can say he's this or he's that. Yet when Hillary Clinton does the things that she does, they don't even look at that. When Chelsea/Bradley Manning does and says the things that she says, nobody says anything about it. And I'm even going to go out on a limb, and this is where I'm going to start tonight, and we're going to shift over into the A block. I'm going to, listen, one of the problems with this constant news cycle and people not examining the news, not looking in further into detail about all these individual things and seeing where they're related, because quite often it's the same people that you hear about in all these rumors and scams. One of the problems is that we've gotten to a point in this country that not only is the news cycle on like literally like a 5-minute turnaround, but people, I mean, there used to be a day when somebody in the news would do something unethical, right? And they would be gone, never to be seen again. You know, Howard Cosell said something that was racist. He was gone. That guy had a lifetime career. Boom, gone. I could think of any other number of sportscasters, but celebrities that do things that were like kind of crazy or weird, boom, they're gone. But now, you know, I don't know Milo. I don't know him. I know that he falls in my category of this group of people that write books, have websites, and do salacious things in order to get clicks and money and sales. And listen, people have to realize the media industry is an entertainment industry. That's the reality of what it is. Hardcore journalism is gone. It doesn't exist. You either have people on the far left that are, saying weird, stupid stuff about Donald Trump, threatening to kill him. We're going to talk about that yesterday. We're going to get back in that today. Or you have people on the right, like Alex Jones. Alex Jones, who's spreading rumors that the president's slurring his speech and he's slowly being poisoned. I'd like to know where in the heck Alex Jones gets this information from. That it ruins any type of credibility that he has, because the problem that he's facing that's not being faced on the left. On the left, media can say anything they want to liberals. And I'm going to hit on you for a minute, liberals. You all follow stuff so blindly that you will just say, oh, okay, that Trump, man, he's got to be crazy. He's crazy. He said that stuff about grabbing women. He's a dirtbag crazy. And then they just keep pushing it on the news, on the left-wing media, and the liberals just believe it. Even though they're all out there, watching porn and talking about each other. The thing about a perfect example, I know somebody that works in all the Miss America and Miss USA, all these pageants. This individual that I know is heavily involved in all that stuff, been involved with it for 20 or more years, and sits in the audience and with the judges and has judged some of these competitions, and they're always talking about that face needs to go on a horse, or she's too fat to be in here, saying all these nasty, terrible things about these women on stage. Yet when Donald Trump had a girl who was under contract for whatever pageant that was, I don't even watch those ridiculous things, he said she was under contract and she gained a massive amount of weight. So he put her on a diet, and he was like trying to get her pumped up and of course, he rode the media train and got the media out there and everything. And somehow he's a bad guy. This is what I'm talking about. The left just rolls with it, right? Well, on the right, Alex Jones is facing a whole different set of circumstances, because the same reason why the right, and I hate using the terms left and right because in reality it's not, that's all made up and that's what we're forced to believe. The conservatives in this country are free thinkers. They don't like to be told what to do. They want to work. They have their mind. They come to conclusions because they think, what's effective? What fixes this problem? Not what am I being told fixes this problem. That's really what separates the leftist from the rest of the free thinkers. That's why I don't like using terms liberal and conservative, because I think there's liberals that think like that as well. It's the leftists. It's the robotic-minded people. And unfortunately, people who are liberal, they turn on the TV and they're indoctrinated by this. But anyway, Alex Jones. Alex Jones goes and spews this nonsense, just like he was, and he doesn't really care. He was just hating on the military a couple of years ago, talking about how they were going to be a part of some kind of takeover of the United States, and it was all fake. The whole thing was made up in his mind or just done for salacious reasons. I took part when I was in the SEAL teams. I took part in those large-scale operations. We can't train in other countries to go against a war to other countries, so we divide the states up into different countries and we go to war. We do a war game. And it's just ridiculous. I hope the weight of his idiotic headlines comes down on him eventually, and because his show is a problem. And he falls in line with the rest of these people. Take Milo, for instance. Why am I bringing up Milo? Do I dislike Milo? No, I mean, I don't know Milo. I like the fact he can argue with the best of them. Same thing with Ben Shapiro. The guy can argue like crazy. But quite frankly, somebody who graduated from Harvard, their fast talking is certainly not going to convince me that they're number one. Their behavior and the things that the way they analyze things and their overall, what have they done besides graduate Harvard, which Ben Shapiro's not done a whole lot besides graduating Harvard and talking really fast. He's definitely a Trump hater, and I think he falls in line with the rest of these people. They're more just like the left. They're out there to spin their stick, and they're out there to get their notoriety, sell their books, make their money. But if it came right down to it, folks, the only reason they would be in the fight is because they make money at it. And Milo, the reason I'm coming down on him is because he's got something that's coming up. And Stephen Bannon, if I get to talk to Stephen Bannon ever, I'm going to ask him this, because I disagree with this 100%. Milo's having this thing at Berkeley where a bunch of people are going to be there. And One of the people who's going to be speaking there is and taking part in it is Steve Bannon. Well, Steve Bannon, what about the fact that Milo, let me pull this up here. What about the fact that Milo said this, and I quote, "You're misunderstanding what pedophilia means," he told the host. This is off of a Washington Post article. Pedophilia is not a sexual attraction to somebody 13 years old who is sexually mature. Pedophilia is attraction to children who have not reached puberty. Now, that was last year before his career fell apart. Maybe it was February of this year. Yeah, February of this year. He can say whatever he wants to rebut that. He can say whatever he wants to try to come back. But here's the facts, folks. I'm less concerned. Well, it concerns me that somebody that confesses to be a hammer for the conservative movement feels that pedophilia is not determined by an adult being attracted to a child. And to him, he thinks if you're 13 and you're sexually mature, that adult that's having sex with you is not a pedophile. They're just attracted to somebody who's young and mature. That bothers me greatly. It bothers me greatly that the conservatives in this country and anybody else would allow a second coming of this individual. Okay? I don't care if Milo's as gay as whatever. I don't care. What bothers me is that is not something that conservatives should stand for. Gay, I don't care. I'm conservative. I don't care who's gay or not. But I do have a real problem with people speaking for me out there or the mindset that I have and somehow just tweaking in there a little bit. Pedophilia is not an adult being attracted to a child. Really? I'll tell you what's even more scary than that. People and the media lining back up behind Milo, including Stephen Bannon. You see, Mr. Bannon, when you do things like this, it ruins every ounce of credibility that you have. When you go on 60 Minutes and say something, or you work in the White House, you come out and then you jump on the media bandwagon back with somebody like Milo, who, quite frankly, should be ostracized from this entire thing. But here's the problem. Two problems. One, which I've been trying to explain in this warning order, is that media doesn't care about morals and ethics. They care about advertising. And so they're going to throw somebody like Milo right back in there because they're salacious and he, you know, they want to make the conservatives look bad. That's really the truth. They love Milo. Come on. Say some more crazy stuff. And then let the conservatives accept him again. The other problem right along with that is not just that conservatives say, okay, well, the media is saying he's okay, I guess I'm okay with it. But people like Stephen Bannon, who should be taking a stand against this, who says he's conservative, who says he was the warrior in the White House, he then turns around and is going to go speak at this Milo presentation. I wouldn't be caught dead around this guy. Listen, forgiveness. Okay, I forgive you. But I'm guaranteeing you that individual, Milo, still feels that way. He doesn't need to be somebody that people are looking up to. There's a countless number of other conservative gays, if that's what you want. But the problem is that we have gone soft in this country. We've gone soft. We think, like, I've listened to this full from ESPN. I've already subconsciously blocked his name out of my head. But I got to look him up because I got to call this guy out. From ESPN, go figure, ESPN, strange that they would be jumping on board with this nonsense. But this guy, I just posted this earlier, but my brain blocked it out. Stand by 1 second. My smartphone's gone dumb. Where is he? Oh, yeah, here he is. Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman on ESPN. You know, he goes off and starts talking about bringing up the Colin Kaepernick issue, right? Colin Kaepernick is a communist, first of all right? But Colin Kaepernick is somebody that yeah, he disrespects the flag. He disrespects the national anthem. He disrespects those who serve. He disrespects the unity that we need in this country in order to survive because he's a separatist. He buys into the Communist Party. He got whipped by a girl, and now he just fell right into line and ruined his career, and he's not in shape. He's not that great of a football player, evidently, and nobody wants to sign him. But here's the thing. It's a private company. NFL is a private entity, and if they want to have rules that you got to stand for the national anthem, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That does not go against the First Amendment. That is their right as a company to tell you you will stand when this song is playing. Just like if you go to a private school and they say you will wear this uniform when you go to school. That's not a violation. Those are the standards and rules of going to that school. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick being employed. It has nothing to do with any type of fascism, any type of oppression being put on Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is an idiot that couldn't separate his career from the blinding emotions he felt from this girl that was leading him astray down a communist. I don't know, maybe he was already like that before. I'm just going off of what I was told. But the fact is, folks, that people get caught up in this nonsense about the Colin Kaepernicks, about the Milos, about all these people, and then the media just spins it. People get going, and they forget. They forget that they have the ability themselves to stop and say, whoa, my morals and ethics don't support that. The law doesn't support 13-year-olds having sex with adults. All right, I stand with the law. I'm not going to go out there and associate myself with somebody that his time in the media is gone, just like Colin Kaepernick's time in the NFL is gone. And there's nothing there about being judgmental. I didn't do it. I didn't say what he said. He said it. I didn't kneel like Colin Kaepernick. He did it. And they're going to feel the ramifications of this. But here's what's crazy about this. The media, in 5 weeks, just like the knucklehead who was fighting dogs, his career should have been over. But they let him stew for a bit and then brought him back in. The NFL, in their weird ways, put him right back in there. And then people just forgot about it wherever he plays. I even forgot where he plays. You know, who knows, in a year, Colin Kaepernick may be back and people will forget. They'll just forget. There's a real problem here, folks. There's a real problem with the way that this country has been programmed to just go like this with our brain. They just go. And then we just watch what we're doing. I feel the emotion I'm told. I get angry about what I'm told to get angry about. Or I'm okay, my morals, I'll put them to the side. You know, that's the way we are. Let's go to the A block and let's discuss this a little bit further. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. You know, I can tell when this is a good show. I can just tell because I'm sweating right now, even though I got the air conditioner cranked. I'm sweating. I can tell when this is a good show. So, I've kind of covered this, but now let's start looking at the reality of what's going on in Washington, D.C. Now that I've kind of given you guys... Now that I've kind of given... Somebody just told me my ad's running backwards down here. Let me... I don't know why this does this. Watch this. Boom. Thank you, tech guy. Let me pat myself on the back. I wish I could. You know what? One day I'm going to have to do an alternate camera angle. I'm going to have to get an alternate camera where you guys can see all the stuff that I have going on right now in front of me. And thank you, by the way, for telling me that. So now that I've kind of given you guys a little bit of a comeback to reality speech there in the beginning and laid out what is actually happening to the American public, let's go over some other stories besides Milo, okay? As you can see, I feel strongly against Milo having any voice in the conservative movement or media covering him at all. I think it's unethical for media to jump back on the bandwagon with somebody like Milo after he said those things about pedophilia. And the other thing is, which I'm going to kind of link these together, Milo, let me ask you a question. When you say something like that, you didn't even walk away with your tail between your legs saying, maybe I have a problem. You're so freaking full of yourself, as is the case with other liberals or conservatives that are in the media. I'm not a fan of Ann Coulter. I'm not a fan of anybody at CNN, really, except for my good buddy Harry Houck and Paul Callan. They're two amazing guys. These people are so full of themselves that they will say or do anything. Hillary Clinton, for instance, she releases her book on the same day that Benghazi happened and 4 Americans were killed on her watch because of her. She doesn't come out and say, listen, I felt the need to release this book on this day because I want to dedicate it to the men that died in Benghazi. That's not what Hillary Clinton did. No. What'd she do? She came out and started talking about why she lost the election and blamed it on everybody but herself. Everybody but herself. She made it sound like there was no reason for her to be put in jail. Well, evidently, according to some of the news that's coming out today, there is some reason for her to be put in jail, as we all knew. If that is not psychopathic, I don't know what is. She doesn't even have enough soul in her body to come out and say, I had the greatest fight of my life last year, and so I figured I would do this in honor of the men that were killed. I even think that would have been in bad taste, but at least she could have done that. At least lie to us a little bit. This woman is so schizo, so narcissist, so psychopathic that she did not even see anything bad about that? Or are they so demonic that they did it on purpose because they knew it would give them free press? I don't know. It could be one or the other. Hey, if you haven't shared this show yet, make sure you share it. Our shares have been low. If you haven't retweet it right now. Now, let me pull old Milo down and get him out of the way. For the longest time, folks, for well over a year, almost 2 years, I've been talking about communism nonstop, about the rise of communism, about the reality of it, about how it has inundated our government, the Democratic Party. I've, since over the past 2 years, learned how much it's in the Republican establishment as well, especially after talking to Michael Reagan yesterday, and the comment that he said was, which was told to him years ago, I think by his sister, that if the government turned communist, it would only take the Republican Party about a week longer to turn communist than it did the Democratic Party. That is scary coming from Michael Reagan. But when I tell people this, and I've been telling people this, they're all amazed. Communism, the Cold War is over, the Berlin Wall fell. That wasn't that was communism, but listen, folks. Communism, as we all know, and I've talked to so many people here, is that communism is an ideology. Rick Unger, if you're watching, which I know he's not. He said today on Sean Hannity's radio show, by the way, every Thursday, pretty much every Thursday, Rick Unger and I are on there about 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I said something about communism today, and Rick was making a joke because I'm always talking about it. And he said, I need to teach you what communism is. And I'm here to tell you, folks, I know perfectly what it is. It is a satanic, evil belief that separate from God, you can have a utopia on earth. It's almost as if when you look at the end product of what the communist believes, it is the Garden of Eden. Everyone that can will do, and everybody that needs can take or will be provided for. It is a utopia without a government, where a synthesis has happened, a synthesis due to great conflict, whether natural or man-made. They believe that, like making a diamond, conflict must happen. And if it's not happening, it must be forced in order to get people broken down to where they will become one. Well, nothing is more insane than that, unless you're looking at what Satan would say. Hey, how would you rule the world? Well, that's what I would do. I would force division and then have everybody divide themselves, and then we would put pressure on them with the government. And before we reveal ourselves, which is very interesting because that's the way it kind of leads itself, would systematically kill all the people that were the activists that kind of pushed this whole synthesis forward. They would go out and then kill those people, then instate what's called normalcy, which is where you have tanks and the secret police making sure everybody feels the same way. And then all of a sudden, magically, peace prevails and the government just pulls away. And all those powerful government individuals who had all the power and all the money and all the prestige, they'll just give it up. And they'll just allow everybody to be. And they'll just milk right back down with everybody else where they all have the same amount of money and the same amount of care. That's bullcrap, folks. That's a satanic lie. Now, satanic. Gillum, come on, man. You're talking about pedophilia and how it's rampant in Hollywood and in Washington, D.C. And then you talk about how these people who have done great things bad, but we shouldn't forgive them and they should move. Man, come on now. You're talking about the occult. Let's just look at a headline. It's right here. I'll pull it up and I'll put it right over here where you can see it. There you go. As always, I got to turn this light down on this thing. Up. Hold on. There it is. Let me turn the light down. I got to get this fixed better. Actually, it has to do with the camera, I believe. All right, can you see that? DC socialite worries the hexes she put on people might have killed them. That's really a headline on Fox News Day. On Fox News, DC socialite worries the hexes she put on people might have killed them. Let's just turn that back up. That's a worthless thing. I just start reading it to you until I get this fixed. Again, I'm working with what I got. All right. Let's read about this story off of Fox News. A longtime Washington socialite. This is published September 14th. That's today. A longtime Washington socialite is raising eyebrows with her new book on spirituality. I love when they say this, spirituality. As she claims the hexes she put on 3 people in the past may have led to their deaths. Sally Quinn, a journalist, of course she's a journalist. It even gets better. Listen to this. A journalist who was famously married, wait for it, to the Washington Post editor, Ben Bradley, admits to being an occultist in her new spiritual memoir titled Finding Magic. Quinn says she feels guilty about her hexes and won't do them anymore. And here's a big one for you, folks. This should have been the headline right here. Should have said, occultist who claims to have killed people with her hexes refuses to cast a spell on President Trump, as some of her friends have asked her. Now, I'm just assuming, okay, since the story states that she is a longtime Washington, D.C. socialite, I would have to therefore assume, from an investigative standpoint, that her friends, which have asked her to cast a spell on President Trump, are also Washington, D.C. insiders. That should freak you the heck out, okay? She says, quote, believe me, since Trump was elected and since the election, I can't tell you how many friends have asked me to put a hex on Donald Trump, and I won't do it, she said in her in a book interview. I just said, no, I don't do that anymore. What a bunch of freaking weirdos. Now, is it conspiratorial anymore to say that Washington, D.C. is ran by people who are either communist or a part of some type of organized crime? Is it conspiratorial to say that? I don't think so, and I think you have plenty of evidence to show for it. The very fact that the Democratic and Republican parties are both private companies, and these private companies have private elections, and they fool the people. They lie to the people and say that these are primaries or caucuses, and they allow the people to come up there and vote. And then they give the people the returns, and they say this is what the votes say. Unless it's not who they want it to say it is. In the case of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. These private parties, and in the case of Donald Trump, like in places like Colorado and other places where they were trying to rewrite the laws, and folks, the laws are not federal law. Those are party laws. Those are private company laws. No different. It's really policies. No different than a private company that has policies on how you elect a board. No different. And they're ran like organized crime. That's why you have people like politicians and the whole machine that runs Washington, D.C. It's the richest place in the country. There's more millionaires that live in and around Washington, D.C. than anywhere else. You have, like a friend of mine was telling me about last night on one of these shows where they talk about American Greed, I think it is, on CNBC. They're talking about these two sisters that ran a company that, by and large, what they did was they're the ones who did the shipping for products from contractors to, and I think I've got this right. They handled the shipping and receiving for the government when it had to do with contractors and people moving and buying and selling of goods from contractors and the government. And there's no Overwatch, or at least there wasn't then. I don't know what they fixed, but there's no Overwatch. And these women stumbled upon it, and for 20 years or for however long they did it, they got, maybe it wasn't 20 years, but they got $20 million from doing this, where they were charging like $900,000 for a nut or a screw or something like that. They only got caught because they did it once, and for some reason it didn't work, and so they did it again. That's where it kicked it back for an automatic human review, and that's where they got busted. That's why do you think these rules don't exist, or the Overwatch doesn't exist? It doesn't exist because the people that are making money are the people that run Washington, D.C. They're the ones who own these contracting companies, or they sit on the board of these contracting companies. So they pass rules, they make policies that keep oversight from happening because they make the money off of it. Now, that's organized crime. Now, when you look at the subversive techniques that are happening with Colin Kaepernick, or I believe Milo, and I believe these other people that are in the media and that are in politics, in the educational, why do you think the educational sector needs so much money? I grew up extremely poor, okay? I did not do good in school. I didn't, because I didn't know how to study. And I, quite frankly, could have had some learning disabilities. I don't know. I was never really tested for it. But my sister goes and homeschools. We all grew up the same way in the same place. I have a sister who goes and homeschools her kids. Then 2 of them go back to public school, or go to public school. I don't know if they've ever been to public school. They go to public school a year and a half before they graduate. And one of them ends up being like the valedictorian, or right up there close to it. She wasn't spending millions and millions of dollars on education. She got the textbook, she had the curriculum, and she taught them. Probably about 4 hours a day. And they ended up being that bright. Both of them went on to be, one's was an officer in the military. The other one is in the military now. Great kids. Why do you think the education sector needs so much money? Because politicians and unions are involved with it, and because communism has a vested interest in the educational sector, because that's how they program robots, folks. And I'm talking about your kids. I'm talking about us, all the people who went to college and have gone to school, a public school, and in large part private schools. You've been programmed. They have a vested interest in this. There's no other reason why schools, you build a building, you put some air conditioner and some desks in there, and you take teachers and you tell them to teach. It doesn't cost that much. But that's why, because of these unions, and you can't fire a teacher, and they want more money for doing this. They have freaking 3 months off in the summer. They don't even work a full year. I love teachers, don't get me wrong, but you all exist in a world that's ran by communists. And so you got these communists and these organized crime figures working and running this country. And now, you know, I've been saying for the longest time, Satanism and the occult is huge in Washington, D.C. People are like, oh, come on, man. You're talking about communism and organized crime, and now you're saying the occult? Well, I don't have to say it anymore. It's right here. It's spelled out in a story on the headlines. Well, it was. Quickly came down off the top. D.C. socialite worries the hexes she put on people might have killed them and her friends in Washington, D.C., and she is a well-known Washington, D.C. socialite, a journalist, and her husband was an editor, very evidently very famous editor. I don't know who this guy is, for the Washington Post, of all places. And she writes a memoir titled Finding Magic. This fruitcake and weirdos like her and her husband run in circles in Washington, D.C. And those circles in Washington, D.C. are like this when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to ESPN, when it comes to all these other places. They're all linked. Like, you know, people do that with their fingers. I could never do that. I got these big old bear claws. I can't freaking... They're all linked, folks. It's all linked. I've heard several stories about congressmen on their first day at work being taken into other offices and being told, you will see things, don't say anything. There you will see drugs. You will see organized crime type stuff. You may even see slight pedophilia stuff. Look the other way. Hand to the dear Lord. That's been told to me by people that are in the know. Folks, this is reality. Now, often on this show, I'll have experts talk about certain things that we need to talk more about. I do believe we need to talk more about insurance, for instance. I don't think people understand what Bernie Sanders is recommending, single payer. I don't think you understand that. I'm not going to go into that. But it's socialized medicine. And it won't work. It hasn't worked for veterans. It won't work for the rest of the country. You need to understand the reality of the people that surround Donald Trump. You need to monitor the president. I'm a big Trump supporter, but I do not subscribe to what Stephen Bannon said on 60 Minutes. I don't put my faith behind anybody in political office. I'm sorry. If I ran for president and I became president, not only would I want you to say, man, that guy is the most handsome president we've ever had. I would also want you to say, he better freaking do what he's supposed to do to fix this country and do what's effective, or else he's out of here. And we're going to stay on him until if he doesn't do it. I don't want a free ride. Anybody who wants a free ride shouldn't be in office. And I'm sorry. President Trump, I respect you. I laid out for over a year why people should vote for you, because your operational experience, because you've worked with things that have to be built. You have to work with subject matter experts. You have to go out and find ways to do things in a city where politics reign and organized crime runs the show, and you had to find your way through it so you could become a billionaire. You failed. You succeeded. You raised well-behaved but liberal kids. That's okay. It's New York City. But I'm not going to give you a free pass and sit back and say, I think nepotism is okay, because I don't. Especially, it'd be totally different if your daughter and your son-in-law were like freaking conservative as the crow flies. They're not. They're globalists. They both know George Soros. They've been taking him pictures with his son. They run in the same crowd as Chelsea Clinton, and now they're in our White House. You know, I don't believe in nepotism, and this is why. Even if they were as conservative as they come, you want to hire them as consultants, that's cool. Or you just want to sit and have dinner with them every night and talk about stuff, that's fine. They don't need to be representing the government. You don't need to be having your daughter, when you're up there talking to different plants around and doing policy speeches, and having your daughter come up there and introduce her. We don't need that. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that. I'm also not going to turn a blind eye to the fact that you won't fire McMaster, who is a Muslim fundamentalist supporter, who won't say fundamental Islam is our enemy, with General Mattis, who I don't know what his sexuality is, but he seems to have some kind of affinity for the whole transgender movement, to a point where he actually stopped the ban that was put into place because he said there needed to be more studies done. I don't know what world he's living in, but all the studies that we need are done. I'm not going to go down that road again. President Trump hasn't done anything to go after Hillary Clinton. He's totally surrounded himself with an FBI director that is best buddies with Mueller and Comey and Rosenstein, and all four of those guys are now surrounding him for prosecution of a fake trumped-up charge about Russia, but not knowing, because he didn't surround himself with guys like myself. He surrounded himself with people who've never worked in the FBI or the DOJ, and so he doesn't realize when they do an investigation, they say, okay, Russia, we got to go after this Russia thing, right? They're not going to find anything on that. So what do? They're going to go look at his finances. They're going to go look at his contacts. They're going to pull his easy passes. I don't know. That's what NYPD does when they go after somebody who they think has done something wrong. I can guarantee you they're going to find something that he's done wrong. Everybody's done something wrong. You don't become a billionaire in New York City building buildings unless you've rubbed shoulders with bad people. That's just a way of life here. Does it make him a criminal? No. Not necessarily, but that's the way buildings get built. If it was listen, maybe that's why you should never run for president if you're a builder in New York City. But am I going to turn a blind eye to the fact that this president has allowed himself to become completely surrounded by the swamp, the cesspool? He jumped straight in with a floaty, and he had a couple of people that were there that could have stood with him and said, no, we're going to fight off all the crap. But instead, they're gone. Fired by people that he appointed. people that were retreads from the Obama administration, people that were retreads, the same old insiders from Washington, D.C., the same people that would not have convicted Hillary or that would follow organized crime or communism. People who recuse themselves right off the bat. Sessions, way to go. So I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this. But I'm not here to just bash Trump. I'm here to give everybody a reality check tonight. Because the news, as I said, gifted us, folks, with this weirdo socialite and her friends, Sally Quinn, Ben Bradley. These are people in Washington, D.C. that are in the know. And so I would imagine a lot of people are involved with this, way more than just her and that guy. Now here's another one. DOJ refuses to let FBI staffers speak to Senate investigators amid Comey questions. Okay. Two things bother me about that, right? We look at the story and you say, well, FBI executives aren't going to let them talk, and the staffer and the Senate investigators, boy, they must be mad. I don't believe they are. This is a nefarious game, just like all the rest of this stuff. They say, we want to speak to them. And they say, no. And they're like, okay, but we're angry. Executives in the government don't screw over executives because they're afraid that that crystal chandelier is going to fall and crush everybody. So they don't do it. They don't go about that. The only way you could ever go after these people is if 15 or 20 million people got together, marched on Washington, D.C., set up a court, and systematically there'd be people die because the cops would probably shoot them because the cops cops don't anticipate this stuff as ever happening. And look, I was an FBI agent for 8 years here in New York City. I didn't understand the reality of what's going on until I left. So I can imagine the cops that exist in Washington, D.C., the federal agencies that exist in Washington, D.C. and around the country, they have no clue about this. They're going to think that you're the enemy because you're trying to march on Washington, D.C. You're no different than those Antifa people. Well, that's not true. The only way this could ever be stopped is if 15 million people, or 20 million people, or whatever, marched on Washington, D.C., set up a court, and systematically started going and grabbing these people and trying them, even if it's based on circumstantial evidence. If they're even remotely related to any of these things, gone. I say that anybody who's been in government more than 5 years should be gone. People like Tom Cotton, who's my mom's senator, should probably be gone already. Tom Cotton comes on and says and belittles the neo-Nazis, which he should have done, and says they were a disgrace, blah, 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 after Charlottesville. Said nothing about Antifa. This is the guy who served in uniform, and he's not bright enough to see that the people that showed up there are communists and that they're a threat to our society. That guy shouldn't be. Look, veterans deserve respect, but not all veterans deserve a leadership position. I learned that in the military. Look, as an officer in the SEAL teams, I was a freaking killer of a shot. I was an awesome operator, but I didn't know how to lead at that point. I should never have been an officer, and that's probably why I only lasted 5 years in there before I jumped over and went. That because I was getting old. I went in at older. I went through BUDS at 28, and I went through Army Ranger School at 30. So, you know, I was older when I went in there, but I needed to learn more about leadership. I'll admit that. I mean, I held my own because you're managing people who are fully capable, but you're also herding lions, and that's a very difficult thing. I would have been a much better E5, E6 if I was in there. And in fact, I believe that's what people should be, especially in I don't think anybody should come into the teams that has not been enlisted in the teams before. That's just my take on it from my experience. There'd be a lot more successful careers if that was the case. And a lot more of these turds that come from the academy wouldn't listen. I'm no fan of the service academies, and I'm no fan of Ivy League schools in this country. I think they've all been. Jimmy Carter came from the Naval Academy, if that tells you anything. And the majority of people in their Supreme Court and federal judges came from Harvard, if that tells you anything. I don't know of any other schools that have produced more destructive people for this country than Ivy League schools and the service academies. You rarely hear of somebody coming from a commuter school that got their 4-year degree online that goes into office and destroys everything. They don't do it because they're grounded. They're not, their heads aren't, they're not part of that whole thing, you know, that whole system. So what I see when I look at this, the DOJ refuses to let FBI staffers speak to Senate investigators amid Comey questions. What I see is the same thing that I saw when Hillary Clinton sat in front of Congress for half a day and nothing came of it. Those people that were questioning her didn't have any more intention of having her convicted of a crime than the man on the moon, as they say in the South. That's not what they were out there for. They were out there grandstanding so that people would remember, well, that old Trey Gowdy, he sure did give her hell. Really? If I was Trey Gowdy and I was in office, because I'm a servant to the Constitution and a servant to the people, had it been Jonathan Gillum up there, what I would have done was I would have stood up at the very end of that and I would have said, listen, I'm going to say this, and I don't care. You can take my 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman. When I walk out of this office today, I'm going to give this 6 months. If this woman sitting right here is not charged with a crime, I will resign my post because I will not be a part of a government that is subverted. And then I would have yanked that little microphone off and dropped it and walked out of there. That's what I would have done. You didn't see that from any of those people because they don't want to lose the pension and the money and the power. They don't want to lose that stuff because they're not there to serve the government. Maybe they got into it for that reason, but they quickly depart from that mentality when they get in there. I don't know if demons exist in there that overcome them. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Old red Solo cup. So that's what I see. When I see these headlines, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the real story. The real story here is that the DOJ refuses to let FBI staffers speak, and there's not going to be anything come about it because those people own the law. They don't enforce the law. If they were enforcing the law, the DOJ would say, if the investigators from the Senate want to see this, our fellow investigators, we should let them see this because there's obviously something there that maybe we should be looking at as well. But they won't do that. They won't do that because those staffers that they're talking about are probably senior level staffers, and they're not going to do that. Plus, they don't want to burn Hillary Clinton because I'm telling you, it is going to be like a forest fire that is going to catch, and Washington, D.C. will burn down, folks. That's what I see. Now, I'm going to end it with this. I'm not even going to try to put it up there. Dadgummit. I don't think that'll work either. Let me see here. Hold on one second. No, it gets too bright. All right. It's okay. I'm sparing you from having to look at this face. All right. If you're a veteran right now and you're watching this show, I want you to give me thumbs up on Facebook, and I want you to give me hearts on Twitter. I don't know. Is there anybody even watching me over on YouTube? 22 people. So here's what I want you to do. If you were a veteran, give me some thumbs up. Give me some hearts. I want to see how many veterans are watching this right now. All right? If you're a cop and you sworn an oath, I want thumbs up right now or hearts on Twitter. If you're a congressman or president, maybe it's watching, I don't know, and you've took an oath, give me some thumbs up and some hearts. Because this next story is a direct slap in your face, folks. Those of you that have served, and the rest of the patriots in this country, quite frankly, that love this country. Bradley Manning, a.k.a. Chelsea Manning. His DNA still says he's Bradley. Not only does this weirdo live a couple of miles down from me, which I've got to be careful what I say on this show, folks. I think everybody knows. Let's just say it's best if we walk on two sides of the sidewalk, okay? Better if it walks over there and I walk over here. And by no means do I talk about transgender people by calling them it or whatever. This guy is a dirtbag. This guy utilized our taxpayer dollars to fund his psychopathic freaking weird sexual whatever it is. I don't know. You can't classify it anymore because the psychological world, and I have a degree in psychology. They're saying now this is a medical problem, not a psychological problem. I say they're full of freaking psychological problems, mostly Trump derangement syndrome. This weirdo, Bradley Manning, former, well, first off, I got to give props to former CIA acting director Michael Morell. On Thursday, announced his resignation as a senior fellow at Harvard after the university named, the way this is written, U.S. Army soldier turned convict. He's a convict, okay? Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow. Now, I got to tell you, I don't like acting directors and all these people because I don't trust them. But what this guy just did, I'd stand next to him. I think Michael Morell, you deserve praise for this. And if you walk in the room and I see you're there, I'm going to either toast you or I'm going to go over and shake your hand because you stood for what's right. Here's what's crazy about this, folks. Again, talking about the reality of Washington, D.C., we've talked about how the media works and how people are so quickly able to just forget about what's happened in the past. Talking about Milo, talking about Hillary Clinton, talking about all these different things, okay? Talked about the occult and the reality of the occult, about organized crime and communism. This is just another example of the psychopathology, or I don't know exactly how to describe this. I don't know what it is. It's like some kind of a mass psychological dilemma in this country. This weirdo, Bradley/Chelsea Manning, when hearing upon the word of Morell's resignation, tweeted one word, good, and he put a winky face, a rainbow, and some hearts, and then wrote hashtag we got this. No feelings, like I was talking about Milo or Hillary Clinton. I almost said President Clinton for some reason. That's the other Clinton. These people have no soul, no conscience. Chelsea Manning should still be in jail and should die in jail. Quite frankly, should probably get the death penalty for what he did. Remember, he's still got the DNA of a he, so I'll call him he. For what he did. He committed espionage, and I would even go as far to say treason against this country. Was put in jail and pardoned by President Obama, the same man that pardoned 4 cartel members from Mexico serving life sentences. He then goes on and after Jessie Jane Duff tweets that she's a former gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, she writes, of all the veterans who honorably served, Harvard hires Chelsea Manning, who was convicted of espionage. Unbelievable. This weirdo comes back and does another tweet saying, awesome, Can you ask Sean Spicer to do the same? Another winky face, rainbow and hearts, and we got this. This fruitcake can't keep his mouth or Twitter muscles shut because he's such a narcissistic psychopath that he just can't stop himself. No remorse for what he did. No understanding for the fact that soldiers and sources that work for us overseas could have died and may have died. We don't know. We don't know. It is what it is, folks. This one guy, J. Michael Waller, I'm reading these tweets, writes, how to become a Harvard visiting fellow, leak 700,000 classified documents and get convicted of 6 espionage charges. It's sick, folks. It's really sick. Does that picture even show up? Look at this. Look at this. This is your visiting fellow at Harvard. With the sign of the resistance. Okay, I get it. You're a communist. Gillum is correct. Once again. All right. I could keep going all night on this, folks. Robin, does his name give you any clue? Yeah, Chelsea. That's true. Okay. I haven't even looked over here to see if there's any trolls over here. Let's see here. I love going back and reading some of these trolls. It's almost comical now, folks. When especially on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook. The people that follow me on Facebook, this is a long time. These people have been with me for 2 years. They're the hashtag CQRF. Remember that, folks. You have a problem with something that's going on online. You have a problem with somebody like this Chelsea Manning weirdo and other people like this. Do your tweet and then hashtag CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force. This is the way we're going to build unity, is by coming together online. First and foremost, it's not like we're all going to quit our jobs and come together like these leftists, communists, stinky rich kids. And they are stinky rich kids, trust me. I'll have to go back and look at some of these things. So don't let the trolls get you down. Don't be afraid. And remember what I've told you now. Let's go to the Truth Zone. And how do I come up with a lot of this stuff? I haven't even talked about this book, Sheep No More. I'm not going to do a full advertisement on this thing, but you got to ask yourself, okay, we know you were a SEAL. We know you worked for 4 federal agencies and were a cop for a little while. How do you see this? I look at this just like I look at any other target. I look at how the enemy works. I look at the critical areas that make this country work. It's called the criticalities, okay? You have the critical assets, which would be the Constitution, for instance, which would be the 3 branches of government, which would be the state and local governments, the American people. These are critical assets in this country. Then you look at the critical areas. Washington, D.C. Certain positions in Washington, D.C. are more powerful than others. You look at the ones outside and inside and how they work, and the people that fluctuate inside, like this occultist or this weirdo Manning and all these other people. You look at James Comey and the Clintons and the Trey Gowdys and all these people, and you see how they work, all right? You identify normal behavior and not so normal behavior, or what's normal to them. And you look at these critical areas, you look at the critical times for those areas. I don't know if that so much applies to this right now as a critical time, however. And then you look at the vulnerabilities. For instance, the media is a huge vulnerability to the American people because they can say and do what they want. They're not held to a legal standard of truth. How that is, I don't know, but they're not. And they've also milked themselves into the Constitution, which they're not a part of. Freedom of the press does not have anything to do with the media. It has to do with dissemination of information, which the media is dissemination of lies, and it runs on our governmental airways, and I think that should be looked into a little bit, where if they're found lying, I think that should not be covered by freedom of the press. Dissemination of lies for the subversion or the injuring of people or the country should not be covered by the First Amendment. That is purposely trying to injure. That's a whole nother thing. But that's a great vulnerability to the American people because their concept of truth is totally obscured by the media. And then you look at the attacker's avenue of approach. In this case, it's probably not going to be North Korea with a missile coming over unless they allow it to happen. It's going to be from within. Texas is a perfect example. Texas is being taken over right now, just like California was taken over. It's just being done in a way by mass migration of liberals to certain cities, and in those cities, they vote specifically for the leftist political candidates. And that's what happens, and that's how those states get overran. Texas, folks, I'm here to tell you, Texas it's going to come down to fighting in Texas. I guarantee you, they're being overran so quickly by leftists that Texas has always been ripe. And I know this is going to surprise some Texans. Texas has always been ripe with organized crime. New York, Chicago, Miami, L.A., and Dallas, and Houston, huge organized crime hubs. And there's others in this country, but those are the big ones. And so you wonder why Texas is falling so fast. And it is. It is. Right underneath the nose of all the good old Texans that have their guns that will one day probably be taken away from them. And they say, oh, they'll never take our guns away from them. Well, one or two of your buddies get put in jail for 30 years for having a gun when they're not supposed to. And I guarantee you people just be like, here you go. Yep. This is reality, folks. So tonight I hope was a reality check. Thursday night I figured let's just throw it out there. The news did us a favor by giving us all these stories. Sickening. All right, let me know what you think. Oh, anyway, as I was getting at with all that stuff is, that is the concept of this book right here, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Okay? The biggest way to survive attack is to avoid it. But if you're not aware, you can never avoid an attack. If you're not aware of subversion, you're going to be subverted. This book and what it teaches you will work on the individual level, the business level, the state level, the country level. The technique that's taught in there is simply this: capture the motivation, the historical behavior, the superstitions, and the desires of the bad guy, and then utilize those to build a target package on whatever aspect of your life it is that you want to defend. Once you understand the way these attacks are carried out and planned and carried out, you can then set up the proper defenses. And the best defense, first of all, is awareness. Before you set up any barriers or walls, you have to have awareness. So that's what this book is all about. It comes out December 12th. Pre-order it now. The more pre-orders it gets, the higher it goes up on the bestseller charts. The higher it goes up there, the more people are going to see it, the more they're going to want to buy it, the more programs I can go on and talk about it. And what happens then? The CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, now has more and more people coming together to grow awareness and empowerment in this country. That's what it's all about. Boom, shakalaka. Let's go to the Truth Zone. Let me see who this weirdo is first. Oh, Tim Richter. You look like a little pretty one. All right, we'll move on. Yeah, we're selling a book, my friend. We're not just selling a book. We're selling awareness and empowerment. I don't have to go to Berkeley to prove that I can stand against Antifa. I got the CQRF. We'll stand against them anytime they want to bring it. Let's do it. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. One of the people just they just said on here on Twitter, what is The Experts? The Experts, my friend, is a show that is not bound by networks and narratives and sponsors. It'd be great if we had sponsors, but I will never take a sponsor that was going to tell me how I have to tell the truth, because the truth is not a narrative. The truth is very similar to God. It is. The truth is. And it doesn't take a whole lot to understand the truth. In fact, it takes less effort to understand the truth than it does a narrative. The truth isn't something that just comes to you. The truth isn't something that just is revealed. You have to have your eyes open to see the truth. But a narrative is like a paintbrush. You could go to sleep and they could just paint right over you, and you wake up the next day and the world is just covered with a narrative. And so if you're not awake, if you're not understanding what reality is, you are going to be covered by a narrative. You have to open your eyes to see the truth, folks. And in order to see that, you have to understand what reality is. The Experts is about bringing you the truth from people that are in the know. I don't talk about things that I don't know. I don't know taxes. I'll find somebody that knows about taxes. I don't know about, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. If I don't know what it is, I'll get somebody. But if I have worked in that environment, then I'll talk about it. I'll be your analyst. I'll be your expert. This show is not about Tommy Lahrens or Milo's or Richard Fowler's. This show is about the truth. And this show is about educating and empowering you. It's about bringing dialogue to you. A place where you can gather and agree or disagree and work it out. All the while, you are able to focus on not what the headline says, but what is being told to you behind the headlines. We slow down the news cycle here, and we concentrate not on what's salacious, but on what is dangerous and what is real. That's what The Experts is all about. And I suggest you tell everybody about The Experts, because as this show grows, as the CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, grows, the truth will spread and people's eyes will be opened. And reality, such as we showed tonight, of communism and the occult and traitors to this country being rewarded for what they did. Once you see that, there is no closing that Pandora's box. It is open. And the truth will be like a shining light right in your face that cannot be turned off, folks. I hope tonight was a wake-up call for you. And if you're one of those people in power, you need to seriously think about what you're doing. If you can take a stand, take it. If you can covertly find stuff out, I'm not talking about leaking information. I'm talking about telling us the reality of what's going on in Washington, D.C. It is your duty. You swore an oath to the Constitution. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My good buddy, my 17-year-old Jack Russell Rico, is down there asleep. I'll see you all tomorrow. Go get my book, Sheep No More. This, my friends, is The Experts. And as always, the truth has arrived. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.